Future's now, old man.
What it do, Jigaloo? This is Future First Podcast, where we are helping you win today with a future first mindset. I'm your co-host J Mac here with my co-host Jose. What's going on, dude?
What's up, J Mac? I'm good, man. How you been?
Oh man, I'm good. I'm pretty tired right now. I feel like I look tired. So if you're watching us on YouTube right now, I probably feel or look like you feel here, Jose. You're coming off of the flu. This is your flu game here, so
Yeah. Well, you know what? Because I was feeling a little down over the Christmas break, and I'd kind of been forgetting to bring it on to the show. But my wife, with the help of some of her friends, made a made
nice.
made some T-shirts. So I thought, I'm not feeling that great, but you look good. That makes you feel good, and you play good. So hopefully we'll get a flu game type of performance into this podcast. Got some pretty cool stuff. Little meta, little kind of higher volume, like what is that called? Like 90 degree, or I don't know, 90 feet up type of look at the fantasy world. I think it's pretty interesting. So, but yeah, man, getting over the flu, the whole family had it. Everybody went down. It just went through the whole household. So thankfully everybody was, mostly okay. We're all kind of coming out of it now. And yeah, ready for the Super Bowl, thankfully.
Yeah, man. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. I was hoping for Rams, Patriots, but we get the Seahawks, Patriots. I don't know, man. The Seahawks defense is just too good, I feel like. The Rams game was a good one, nonetheless. Just too many turnovers that weren't necessarily Matt Stafford's fault, and they kind of killed him.
Yeah, I mean it was a great game. I mean that first one, I've been posting some of the memes about this Patriots team that's made a Super Bowl. I mean, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen, how that weather changed. And it was just them basically running up the middle three times in a row, or rolling Drake May out to throw the ball out of bounds, and then just saying, all right, we don't think they're going to do anything. And the backup quarterback for the Broncos was not able to do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was good to see a good NFC Championship game. Those two teams delivered, like you said. The Seahawks defense is elite.
Mm,
But they still give up a good amount of points. I mean, Matthew Stafford
yeah.
played like the MVP that he was. I mean, he tried everything he could, but Darnold, I think, played just as well. I mean, he did not revert back. Now the Super Bowl comes, but I hope it's a good game. I hope Drake May can kind of put up some points, and we get as a neutral fan some a good Super Bowl.
Yeah. I hope for all of our sakes that we get that as well. Hey, at least it won't be snowing.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I was in the Discord talking to some people, and it was like, oh, don't worry, it was like 57 out in Santa Clara. It was a little cloudy, but it was like 50. Pretty much if you're on the west of the Rocky Mountains, you're not seeing any of this
Yeah,
crazy weather that a lot of people. But hopefully, you're staying safe out there, staying warm. I know it's been crazy for some
for
people out
real.
there. So
Yeah, they're getting like 18 inches in some places, maybe more. It's crazy. Yeah, I hope y'all are staying safe. But yeah, we don't deal with snow over here on
no,
on the west coast of California. You might see some fog. I've been having a lot of fog recently up here. So,
yeah.
um, all right, yeah, let's get into some announcements here. So we wanted to kind of kick off here. We're gonna start doing some roster reviews as a service and kind of a way to kind of get some new content out there for y'all, and we'll review your dynasty rosters and provide some roster construction feedback, give you some general moves to make, and maybe even a few specific moves to improve your team. If you have a startup coming up too, and you want like a draft strategy tailored to your format, we can review that too. We'll review trades. I mean, pretty much anything. We're just trying to kind of open up the door here, to engage with you guys and have some cool content that can go along with it too. We're gonna start asking you about like $5 per team, where you can send your roster review request to futurefirstpod@gmail.com if you're interested, and we'll send you some more information there. But just to kick things off and promote what the roster view reviews will look like, we're going to be doing a free team review giveaway here. Just make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below letting us know that you want to be entered into the giveaway. And we'll get you guys going there. We'll probably run this 3 or 4 times here for the month of February, probably through the month of February, and then we'll pick like a roster review from those 4 videos that we post over the next couple weeks or few weeks. But I'm looking forward to it, and I know Jose likes to do these kinds of things too, man. So yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
100%. I think it's a great idea. Great for you guys to connect with us. If if you have some questions that you just want to ask somebody, to get the first one in free, get your comment in there, your like, your do your thing, and you can get the first one for free, and just kind of get a little bit of idea. It's always good to bounce some ideas off other people. When we're no experts here, but it's always good to hear from other people what they think about a team, right? They might see something that you don't see as a glaring hole or as a glaring strength.
You know what, man? I'm gonna say we are experts. With how loosely that gets thrown around here in the industry, yeah, we're experts. Yeah. All right, but even if we're not experts, we have what I like to think is an expert joining our team here. McGrumble, another member of the Toe Clan here, wants to kind of get in on the podcasting front, but he wants to be kind of behind the scenes, doing things in the production standpoint and stuff. So as we've been looking to tier up the knowledge that we're dropping for y'all, McGrumble is the guy stepping up to help out there. He's a part of PFF's analysis team. He also writes articles for Rotoballer, and I beat him in Toe Clan 2 championship this year. It's not relevant, but I couldn't miss the opportunity to dunk on him here. And then he's going to play a big part here, helping out with rookie breakdowns in the next coming weeks, and more behind the scenes stuff as we move forward here. You can folloll his work on Twitter, X at FF_McGrumble. That's McGrumble. Yeah, man. I love McGrumble. We worked together. We smashed like 100 drafts on like college fantasy football a couple years ago together. So that was pretty fun. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, if you're ever happy or sad about some sort of PFF grade, I've heard he's directly related to handing those out personally over there at PFF. So, he'll be somebody you can cheer with or yell at from our team. But yeah, I mean, he's a really knowledgeable guy. He's somebody who's super happy right now because I'm pretty sure he's a Patriots fan. So he's, over the moon with what's going on. But I know he plays in a ton of like these, from crib to the pro type of leagues. Like he, like you said, with the rookies, he's very plugged into a lot of these sort of kind of deeper league devy type of things. So he's going to be a great knowledge and a great fountain of like help for us going forward. So it's pretty awesome, man. It's awesome that he wanted to jump on this great journey we've had together and make us better.
Yeah, for sure. And make you all better along with that too. So we're looking forward to having McGrumble start with us here, and we'll keep you guys posted and on that. And moving forward, you can like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you touch down on that like button and go for 2 and subscribe. Be sure to drop a comment while you're there, especially if you want in on that free givey. And if you're catching this episode on Player Profiler Network, be sure to follow us directly on YouTube at FutureFirstPod. Or you could search Future First Pod wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out to Fox, as always, who's been helping us with our graphics. You can follow her on X at BFoxworth07. And yeah, let's get on with it, man. So for today's episode, we're going to be looking over the NFL league-wide trends, which we feel like may have some kind of impact on the fantasy game that we like to play here. So we're going to identify what those are and how we feel like they might be impacting our leagues. But first, as always, a quick hit, man. Let's do it.
Go.
cut you off with that one. Sorry, man.
No,
I'm
good,
telling you,
good.
man. I'm like, if you guys can't see me, I'm like, I'm super tired right now. I'm just not. I'm
Yeah.
just. Hopefully, my energy is not affecting it. Um, all right, we're in the quick hit here. We're gonna be looking at Sean McDermott, who got fired. Can you imagine just someone being really bad at their job that you work with, and everybody knows it, and then boom, they get promoted, and that same day, the guy who's been, just slacking off, and you're the guy just doing all the hard work, you get fired. What? I'd be heated, bro. Like, how does this happen, man? What was your reaction when you heard this news?
Yeah, at first I was like McDermott fired. I was like, well, it feels like something has to change. I'm not one of these subscribers that I think it falls a lot on Josh Allen's feet. There's definitely times where he hasn't come up, to where he needed to be, but the team has also never been that greatly constructed around him, right? He's never had, if I can remember off the top of my head, like one of these elite Seahawk type defenses, right? I mean, those are not that common, but it hasn't happened. So I wasn't too surprised. I was like, I think it makes sense to move on from McDermott. At some point, you got to just try to shake things up and not continue to waste Josh Allen's career. But then I heard that the other guy got promoted, and I had to look up what that meant and everything. And it just seems clearly like a guy that has his, the ear of the ownership very, very tightly, around his finger, or whatever word you want to use. And he's clearly, even we saw it right after that crazy press conference where they came out and threw a player that's still on the team and Keon Coleman basically under the bus saying he's trash, and that was McDermott's pick, right? And didn't it's just
That
some
was
wild
weird.
stuff, right? Like it very seems like Bean there, who's the general manager, very clearly is very, very hand in hand with the ownership, and it seems like he's the guy calling all the shots and getting all the approval. And he got somehow he hired this coach. I'm pretty sure, and then he's been making the drafts picks that haven't been working out and all this stuff, and then he was able to just say, "Let's fire that guy," and I get a promotion. Like you said, it's just a wild scene. It's pretty incredulous, but hey, man, sometimes it's who you know or how close you are with somebody than how well you do your job.
Yeah, yeah, man. I know what you mean. Like he's just kind of playing the politics card and little fingering his way into a promotion, which is I don't know, man. It's just weird to me, especially when I don't think Sean McDermott is like that bad of a coach. Um, if anything, like get a new offensive coordinator. I don't know. I guess the interviews too, like they're looking at Brian Dable, Mike McDaniel, which obviously I don't know how that works. Like Mike McDaniel's took the Chargers job and now he's getting interviewed for the head coach job.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically it sounded like some sort of kind of handshake deal where it's like maybe not pen to paper yet, where it's like, hey, you're going to be ROC unless you get a head coaching job. But he actually pulled out once the guy you didn't mention, which was Philip Rivers, who you're going to get to. I mean, once the kind of circus that there seemed to be running over there started coming out, he actually withdrew and didn't go meet with them. So he did an
Oh,
interview.
okay.
I'm not sure if Dable actually did, but it's a wild time. I don't understand who Philip Rivers. This seems like, again, like just nepotism throughout. Like if the general manager has this sort of power, who does he know, right? Who does Philip Rivers know within the Bills organization to get a coaching head coach job? Like if you said he was going to come be the quarterbacks coach or even maybe even the OC, okay, maybe like it would be still kind of wild, but for the head coaching job, like what has Philip Rivers shown anything anywhere to be a head coach in the NFL? Especially when you have so many young, what do you call them? Offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, right? Coordinators throughout, quarterbacks, like all types of different guys coming up and coming that you could be interviewing, and you're interviewing Philip Rivers. It just seems so weird.
Yeah.
Um, just not a well run situation.
I don't know, man. Philip Rivers, let's flip and go. You know, He- heckin' yeah. Like I think it'd be fun to have Philip Rivers. And I mean, what? He's the emergency backup QB, right? I mean, I feel like if Josh Allen ever goes down, he's just gonna suit up. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what that mess turns out like over there. Probably not well. I don't know. Are you worried about any pieces of the offense over there?
I'm not worried. I mean, Josh Allen, it seems to be Josh Allen. I mean, you would hope that they would do something to benefit him. James Cook could be an interesting one where he saw a lot of work even through fumbles and different things. He seemed to be really valued piece. But I mean, it's what else are you? Who else are you going to use in that offense unless they completely go out and do something drastic to that offense? Who else is there besides Josh Allen and James Cook? Like Khalil Shakir got a nice bag of money, but he's clearly not meant to be a wide receiver one. So it's just like what else? What other weapons for the new head coach, new OC, are they going to use? It has to be James Cook and Josh Allen. I think that's part of the damning evidence against like the organization is those two, and I think there was one other name that they've drafted that has been a Pro Bowler in the last like however long. I think it's been 5 to 7 years, something like that. Those are the only guys, right? And that GM at the beginning of the season talking about, oh, our wide receivers, what are you talking about? You don't need a good wide. And then you see, what's happening with that wide receiver room. It's just not smart. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to not give Josh Allen uh, everything you can to try to go and win. And kind of have it all on his back. And yeah, he's supposed to be that quarterback, but nobody can do it themselves, right? Like we've seen Mahomes, he's had Kelsey, he's had a good O line, except the last few years. He had Tyreek Hill at one point. Like the guys that are there is like either the defense is elite or they have the pieces on offense so that the elite quarterback
Mm.
can go do their thing, So I'm not particularly worried. Like I'm not panicking. It would be great if they brought in some sort of like, new up and coming OC or, head coach.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens there, and I'm curious to see what happens with Keon Coleman. I don't know. It feels like he's kind of destined to get moved here and traded. It was just wild to see the owner, throw the shade that he threw at him while he's still on the roster. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Poor Keon Coleman.
I know, man. Yeah. I mean, but wait, what are you gonna do? I mean, that I didn't know this, but I guess there's been a lot of like chatter about him just not being the professional and like kind of doing his job type of thing. So I thought that was interesting, and maybe that plays into it. And he's a young guy, and I feel like that kind of stuff can change if you get moved. You get that reality check, and then you realize what opportunity you have in front of you, and you try to make the most of it. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to wish cast anything here on that front, but I'm not even like a big Keon Coleman fan either at that point. Um, yeah, this is a good time to plug Fast Draft here. If you guys aren't over there already, you should join up and get going over there. The Origins rookie draft is a ton of fun. They're also starting the Rabbit tournament here soon, which I haven't done yet, but it's more like a typical best ball where I think you draft 14 players on your team, and it's only 8 teams, I want to say, that are playing in your pod each time. Um, it looks like a ton of fun. It just rolled out late last year, and um, I didn't make it to any of the tournaments and build any teams there. But I know Fox played in it, and I'm pretty sure she won a decent chunk of money on that one. She had a really good team going for it. I want to say she won a couple grand or something like that. So shout out to Fox again. And if you guys aren't over there, if you are wanting to play, you can get a deposit match up to $50 with code FUTURE. And yeah, it's a ton of fun. We hope we see you guys on there. And let's roll into the Podfather here, who wants to say some words about the Dynasty Dominator.
If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long. And there's a win now mode and a rebuild mode with Superflex and tight end premium controls. and a Dynasty League sync, where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams, and then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs, and then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes pick values out to like 2028. All of that plus the rookie guide $25 value is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code, and you can bump up to all in and get $25 off.
All right, welcome back. And yeah, if you guys haven't used the Dynasty Deluxe, it's a huge boon. I use it all the time. One of my favorite tools is the trade analyzer. I go in there, and it's one of my favorite things just to kind of look at the values, and really useful for startup drafts too, because they have the startup draft values in there. So if you're kind of weighing those back and forth, I mean, the rankings are great. They have their analysis tab, which has all sorts of great stats that you can get, per route run stuff, stuff that you can't find in a lot of other places. So yeah, if you guys aren't over there, highly recommend it. One of my favorite tools to use when getting into Dynasty. All right, here we are in our segment today with the NFL league-wide trends. And yeah, the general idea of this was just to kind of like shout out observations that we've been seeing in the NFL here, and how they could or might impact the fantasy landscape here. And in some cases, we have some data to kind of back it up that just verifies kind of what we're seeing. And it's not something that this is all brand new stuff either. This might be stuff that you guys have all heard about at the same time. But we just wanted, I think it's helpful to kind of like think about these things as a theory, and how they can affect us playing this game, because this game changes. I mean, when we look at what we were drafting 6 years ago compared to today, like, it's not the same. We were drafting very running back heavy early on in those rounds, and zero RB was like a brand new thing that was like just catching on. And it was very controversial at the time. Whereas now I feel like it's more widely accepted, and honestly probably more prominent, and I guess more widely used than it would be over a more robust type strategy here. So yeah, I guess did you have anything else you wanted to preface this with, Jose, before we kind of jump into each one of these trends?
No, it's kind of like we said at the top of the episode. It's just like a kind of like sky high view of the league and things that are going on that I think do have impact on fantasy, and is good to know about. Just another little piece to the puzzle to add, to when you're analyzing trades, when you're analyzing leagues, when you're analyzing your own teams and your own habits. These are some things that can help you have a little bit deeper understanding of the game.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so the first one we wanted to examine here were the new kickoff rules. And honestly, you guys should know what's going on with these new kickoff rules, but if you didn't, you should know that they have a landing zone now where the ball has to be kicked between the 0 and 20-yard line, and if it misses, then you get the ball at the 35-yard line. And honestly, you can get it even closer than that. If it lands short of the zone, I think they get it at like the 40-yard line. So you get a lot shorter fields when the kick doesn't go the way that you want it to. On average, the last 2 years, the average field position of a kickoff is up 4 yards from previous years. And this is from data that NFL posted on October 2025. So it was like week 5 of this past season that they were using from. But in 2024 and the first 5 weeks of this past season, teams on average started at the 29-yard line, whereas in 2023 and a lot of years previous, the average field position, starting position, was the 25-yard line, which makes a ton of sense because in 2023 and before, people were just kicking touchbacks for the most part. Like it never made sense to let the other team give them a chance to even run the ball back. It's just like the analytics said, hey, put it on the 25 and you're good to go. So the league made a conscious effort to change that because it was boring. And for what it's worth, the change, I like the change. It's been a real positive from a fan's perspective. But we also want to examine like what is that doing for us playing fantasy football? If our average starting position is 4 yards further up the field, just on average. So I mean, sometimes it's 10 or 15 yards up the field in comparison to what we used to have. I don't know, man. Like how are you seeing? Do you see that when you're watching these games? Do you feel like this is making a significant impact?
I think it's having an impact in terms of like how you see the drives start out, right? And then like in terms of whether there was a return or not. Like there's some still teams that are still kind of doing the bad touchback, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But in terms of like the actual returns, the yards you're losing, I was thinking it was going to have a bigger impact than it did. Like in terms of, I was thinking maybe like 10 yards lost, right? Which would be a decent amount. I think teams are just becoming very smart, right? At the beginning of the season, you kind of saw there was a lot of, and then I think kickers learned what they needed to do to put the ball right outside the end zone and in that landing zone. So I think the impact on fantasy is somewhat minimal, but I think there is a way that if you wanted it to be impactful, right? Before it was like, kickoffs are just a dead play commercial, kickoff commercial, like that sort of thing. And it was kind of, but if you wanted to in a deeper like dynasty format, maybe some, I'm always looking to spice things up. If you wanted to add like some return yardage points, I think now you could kind of get into a situation where if you're writing, a deep dynasty roster with a lot of starting spots on a week to week, a Shaheed might become a little bit more interesting. A guy that is always returning the ball, even if they're not getting house calls, and so maybe the return yards are nerfed. They're not 1-to-1 like they are for receiving and rushing, but like the passing style where it's point 0.04 or whatever it is, maybe like that. So now you have a guy that maybe can score an extra 4 points, depending on how many kickoffs they get or something like that, right? I think there's a way where you could make it if you wanted to and really look at it, mean something for fantasy, but otherwise for most regular leagues, it's kind of a zero-sum game. It's good for the NFL. They got what they wanted, but this one doesn't have tremendous impact on fantasy.
Yeah, I would agree. And also, like on that mention, if you are playing in a league with kick return yards, you probably already know that Shimre Dike is like a top 5 wide receiver because that guy is just wrecking it in the return yards. But yeah, and I think another interesting stat here is just in general, the average field starting position, and this is for all drives, is up 2 yards on average over the past 2 years, so 2024 and 2025, when you compare it to the previous years, pre new kickoff rules. And 2 yards is not much. And if you think about it as like 10 drives on average per game, you're missing out about 20 yards total on offense that aren't going to your players. So really not much. But I am curious to know, like, is this having an impact on our game that we can't quantify, right? Like, is because you have these shorter starting positions, are people, taking smaller chunk plays and running the ball more to burn the clock because they don't have to go as far than they had to, like things like that, like things that we can't necessarily look at from an analytics standpoint and say like, this is a direct correlation to this in terms of like schemes and things like that. But yeah, I think you're right, like a very little fantasy impact in general that we can kind of quantify here. All right, you want to move on to this next one, or do you have any more you want to say on the kickoff rules?
No, I think we're good with the kickoff.
Okay, cool. And this next one has been covered quite a bit over the last couple years, or maybe even a little bit longer. I've heard a lot about it, and there's been a lot of dialogue on podcasts and honestly, even just NFL media, and that's the defensive scheme shifts, where we've seen a lot more cover two high safeties, etc. Those type of coverages where they're kind of stacking the middle of the field and kind of daring you to go over the top against their safeties. But with that comes along a lot of disguised coverage as well, which I think is why it's become really popular. Is they're confusing the quarterback on what coverage they're really playing, pre-snap before it actually kind of plays out. And there's a lot that they can kind of do to drop in and cover different sides of the field. But I think like a really big impact that we have seen from this league wide is that we see a lot less high value plays in terms of fantasy. So like big chunk plays, 40-yard passes or 40-yard completions. And you see a little bit more underneath and over the middle stuff. And like, I don't know, interesting enough, like the ballers talked about this, and JJ Zachariason also talked about it, but like the running backs are not the ones necessarily profiting off of this, as you might expect. Like we've seen a steady decline in running back receptions since like 2020. It's been the lowest it's been in like 5 or 6 years in terms of running back reception. So they're not the ones benefiting from this, at least in terms of receiving, like you might think that they would. And I think that just goes into the defensive scheme shifts too. Like what they're doing is they have kind of plans for a safety valve, like to take out the a spy on the running back, I guess is where I'm going with it. But I don't know, where's your opinion lie on these defensive scheme shifts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's become prominent. I think you hear about it pretty much on every broadcast talking about it. And I think just in general, there was, it's always kind of to me like a pendulum and an evolution, right? Like the game of football, just like the game of fantasy, continuously evolves. So the NFL, with its rules, made certain things more easier on the offense, right? PI calls, different things. And I think it took a while for the defensive minds to kind of wrap their head around what they needed to do now. And I think you see a lot more guys for defensive coordinators that are just really, really smart at getting the pieces they need, but also on how to make people make mistakes, how to make, if the other quarterback is not doing their homework, or if the other quarterback is not sharp at the line like they need to be. A lot of quarterbacks are getting confused. A lot of quarterbacks are kind of getting chewed up by those defensive systems of this, showing blitz, then they all drop back. This cornerback, like in the smaller windows that there is to throw deep. So I think it makes sense for the tight ends to be kind of having more of a area to play in, because that's where most of them kind of run, right underneath or in the middle, in between zones. They're kind of the guy that, famously, that's what made Kelsey so good. He kind of would just, what route is Kelsey running? He's running, going between the zones, right? Like find the open space. And obviously not everybody has that sort of free reign, but just that's kind of the prime example of what a good tight end can do for an offense. So I think it's just the pendulum, right? And the great offensive minds like McVay and the others will kind of come to a way that they're going to beat that. What kind of weapon is that? Maybe it is just the tight end usage, but they'll figure out ways that they're going to, carve up defenses and figure out how to kind of swing the pendulum back. It is interesting that the running back position just kind of seems to continue in the NFL to be, I don't want to say devalued, but that's kind of what it feels like. Like it feels like nobody, unless you have the cream of the crop, everybody's kind of more just willing to do a split backfield, more willing to find like a guy that can fill the position. And it just seems to not have like the prominence, right? Like you don't see Emmitt Smith's like, and like, 5-10 years ago, there was like so many running backs getting a lot of carries, right? Like now it's split across almost every backfield is split, right? Like even a guy like Kyron Williams, who was playing tonight, has a guy like Blake Corum drafted to him, and now they're splitting literally series on series, right? Like it doesn't matter what's happening in the game. If it's the last drive, basically, Blake Corum may still jump in there because it's his series, so to speak. So that's a kind of a side thing, but I think that might be one of the things that great offensive minds look to is a more run, steady run game, right? There's less people up front, but it comes a lot more to the quarterback's mind. Like it puts even more, I think, on the quarterback to now read these eccentric and complicated pass coverage schemes that a lot of DCs are running now.
Yeah, it brings to mind here. I don't know if you saw that interview, or it wasn't even an interview. It was like a press conference on Kirk Cousins after one of his games. They were asking him about coverages and how they've changed and how he has to like break them down. And he was talking about how he used to be able to look at a field and he just be able to, have his reads and just like eliminate half of them immediately based on looking at the coverage. But now like he can't do that. He has to like progress through all of his reads based on how the defense is reacting after the snap. And it kind of just like ties into all of this and how the game is morphing and going there. And also another point that I think you kind of touched on a little bit too, but I think defenses and part of like the pendulum swinging, defenses are a lot smaller. Like the defensive backs, like there's no like Ray Lewis out there right now. Like these guys are, like they're maybe like pushing 200 pounds or something like that on average. They're faster, but they're not necessarily as heavy, which changes, right? Like when you were saying how Sean McVay and how these defenses are going to swing or offensives are going to swing the pendulum back the other way. JJ Zachariason on one of his latest pods, he titled it "The Death of the Wide Receiver 2." Talks about how tight ends are actually the ones benefiting on this, and McVay and others, like I think Arthur Smith was way ahead on it, are running like these heavy 13 personnel sets where they have 3 tight ends lining up, and they're able to block if they need to and run the ball if it's there, or one of them can run a route and take advantage of like a 6'4", 250-pound tight end going up against a 5'10", 200-pound DB. It's just, that's part of it. But also, these cover 2 and 2 high safeties and stuff, a lot of the times, like the weakness of the field is the middle of the field, kind of over the top. And these tight end seam routes can really be the weakness to those things. So I think that's why we're seeing the pendulum swinging back is this tight end scoring. And I don't really know how to capitalize on that right now yet. It might just be that, especially in tight end premium leagues, that tight ends are going to be more valuable because they're going to be more flexible. And when I say flexible, I mean like able to be flexed into your lineup more often. So I don't know what that means getting ahead of that. If that is something that we kind of want to like pay more attention to, it might just be like you're buying low on these tight end 2s, so to speak. Yeah, I don't know. It was really interesting. If you haven't listened to that JJ Zachariason pod, I would. It's a good one.
Yeah, no, I think 100% with that, with what you were talking about in terms of some actionable advice, right? Especially in any sort of tight end premium that's like a half a point extra or more. And I started doing this in a league already. I'm kind of not knowing why, but I needed one of last flex, and a lot of times I was throwing like a Dallas Goedert in there. Obviously he had a really good year, but it was because I was starting Trey McBride. And I think that is something, like a lot of those secondary tight end, even ones, but like you're talking about the tight end one, but they're like the 10th, 11th, 12th best tight end, they're not valued at a ton, right? They're probably easier to get than some of the wide receivers that you could flex into that sort of role. I think pinpointing those tight ends on those offenses, right? Like we were talking about with the Rams, if one of them could emerge as a more kind of useful guy. There was a bunch of, we talked about it in our tight end free agency. A bunch of those guys are not going to be super expensive this off season, and they just sometimes make more sense. I think that this is kind of one of those things where you have to evolve your game. Like even in a super flex, like sometimes it just makes more sense to not start a second quarterback or not flex a wide receiver, running back when you have a good tight end, and just if you have two, or go shopping for one of these tight ends that are going to be easier to acquire. And I think a lot of people just have a problem with that. They don't like the two tight ends. They're like, they know that historically tight ends have not scored as many points. But if the NFL is telling you that the way to beat these defenses is tight ends, then that could be the trend that we see going forward, where having a second good tight end that isn't just for bye weeks and injuries could be a pretty handy thing to do in terms of roster construction down the road.
Yeah, I feel like we have seen it too, right? I mean, we've seen these rookie tight ends pop off a lot. I mean, granted, it feels like this last, the 2025 tight end class was very transformative for fantasy, but maybe that's not as indicative of the players and their skill set alone. Maybe it's just the defenses and the defensive schemes and the offense is taking advantage of what they're giving them. So something to think about. I also, one other thing I want to talk about too, what JJ was also pointing out is like, you may think you want to devalue wide receivers here, and that might be true for like, your wide receiver 13 onward, but honestly, it just puts a heavier value on those top end wide receivers because they're not the ones seeing the decline in usage here. It's the kind of the guys behind them, like the CD Lambs, the Jamar Chases, the Pukas, like they're still earning the targets because they're that good enough where they can kind of beat the defense and get open regardless.
Yeah, and it can also makes it more imperative to buy into those wide receivers you think are going to ascend into that category early, and then get out on a fading star even faster when if it becomes that they're way more valued because they can break those defenses no matter how many cover twos and the like a deeper route blockage that they're running, right? So it's another thing to keep in mind when you're looking at these wide receivers at the top of the list.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's take a quick break here, and we'll be right back to talk about some more trends. All right, we are back, and we're going to kick it off here. I think these last two we can kind of lump together, and really it's a trend we've seen. I'm gonna change it on the fly here. It's shorter fields based on stalled drives or just successful points being scored. And the two that we have down here is we have long bomb kickers. We have kickers that are now kicking it. What did Cam Little? Did he kick it 72 yards or something like that? I know he broke the record, but in the preseason game, I'm pretty sure he kicked it 72 yards. And then on top of that, we have fourth and go attempts being more frequently taken. And the idea here is that if they're going for these longer kicks and they don't make it, now the offense on the other side has a super short field, 40 yards to go. Or same thing on a fourth and go attempt. If they're going for it on fourth down at midfield instead of punting, the offense on the other side now gets the ball with 50 yards to go. So shorter drives mean less yardage, which means less fantasy points overall. But it's kind of a give and take here, right? Because it's less fantasy points when they fail. to convert on the fourth down or make the field goal, but it's also keeping the offense on the field and in the times that they do make it or when they do convert. So it's a give and pull. I would be interested to see if we can kind of like dive into these numbers a little bit more and figure it out. And I have a feeling like data is going to surface on this stuff like pretty soon. You know, maybe this off season. I feel like this is going to be a talking point going forward, and I just don't know where to look for that data yet. We do have some on the fourth and go attempts, which Jose, can you share that since you were the one that kind of found it, and I feel like you might be able to explain it a little bit better.
Yes, I mean this was kind of just like the raw, like surface level of like when teams were going for it on fourth down, right? So it was looking back even further than this. It went back into the 90s, but one comparison that they made was just 10 years ago. Teams, this across every team in the NFL put together, were going for it around 450 times and succeeding 46% of the time. And then just last year, um, they went for it 766 times, so almost over 300 more times, almost doubling, right, of the
Yeah.
amount of times. And not just that, but it saw a greater increase in, obviously you go for more times, you expect the times that it is successful to go up, but it went up a pretty drastic amount. 57% of the time that teams went for it on fourth down, they were converting. So like JMac was kind of saying, like it's good and bad, right? If they convert on fourth down, it means the drive keeps going, and that gives that team that has the ball, that possess the ball, more chance to score more points, right? Because their drive doesn't stall on a punt or a field goal attempt. But if they're unsuccessful and it's one of these aggressive head coaches, it actually takes away yards from the other team. Now they might be closer to scoring a touchdown, but in terms of like the sustained long drives, you're not getting a 75-yard drive. Maybe it's only a 49-yard drive. Like Dan Campbell is a psychopath that goes for it on his own side of the field on the first quarter, right? Like he is very, very aggressive. Obviously not every head coach is like that, but the analytics, even it's creeped up on pretty much every head coach. I think you can tell which ones are a little bit more conservative. They don't trust it as much, but there's a lot of, I think, teams that are being analytics driven, and on these shorter downs to go, like anything fourth down and less than 3 yards or less to go, it's increased a lot, and I think that's what's pushed the amount of attempts. Like anytime you almost see teams playing on third down, they have like a longer third down. It seems like they're playing to get 8 yards, so it's a 4th and 2, and then go for it, right? Like it seems like they're playing to that a lot more, which kind of also, to our previous point, not seeing as much long passes down the field. It seems like there's a lot more short underneath stuff. So it's very interesting because it is a double-edged sword, right? It's like it gives and takes. Like if it almost feels like if the players on your team and they're going for it on fourth down, like, yeah, now they get, they've got it. Okay, now they can get a touchdown still. But if you have the players on the opposite side, you're like, no, don't, like, punt it, give it to my guy, to go 80 yards. So it's a very interesting thing. And I'm sure like as it continues to progress, because it seems like this is the way the NFL is trending, more and more teams are going for it. We'll get, more and more data of like how is this actually affecting fantasy, and not just that, but like the yards, right? That teams are having to go for, and like the yards that they're accumulating throughout the game. If they're kicking a super long field goal, right? Like if you're the Jaguars, I think it was 68 yards. I think it was the record that he beat. If you have that guy on your team, now your Trevor Lawrence's, your Travis Etienne, it's like, well, they're anywhere near that guy's field goal range. They don't need to be nearly as aggressive, right? Like we see that all the time as a Cowboys fan with I'm completely blanking on the Aubrey, right? He has a leg that like they're willing to give him a 60+ yard attempt. If you have one of those kickers, it does affect fantasy, because now the offense isn't going for it as much because they could just kick a field goal, right? And 3 points by the kicker, nobody's happy with that anywhere, right? So
Right.
it's a situation where depending on what's the motive and who's doing what, it can have a decent impact, right? Like if you're taking a whole entire drive away from another team because you go for it on 4th and 3rd on, the 47-yard line, and now you chew up another 5 minutes to go score. You maybe just took a whole nother possession out of the other team's hands, right? So it's a lot of moving parts that gives you positives and negatives.
Yeah, maybe something we look into too as like an offensive coordinator type of thing, right? Is what's their tendency to kind of go for these things? And like you said, like look at the kicker, like are they good? Are they gonna put the ball on their foot and can they kick it? Or are they bad? In the case of, Jake Moody, like maybe you want 49ers, and this is obviously a year or two ago. But yeah, it's something to look at, and I think it deserves attention because I think like we're saying, like there's gonna be a lot more that comes out of this, and I kind of had a question too, like if a team got the ball turned over on like a failed conversion, is there any like tendency or likelihood that team might just like run the ball more and burn the clock because now they see it kind of like a free possession type of thing? I feel like you see that sometimes when teams get a turnover. Like a lot of times, like they'll be a little way more conservative with their play calling because they see it as like a free possession where the other team, stalled and didn't get the chance to score because like they turned it over. So like I don't know, like do you think there's any kind of tendency for an offense who gets the ball on like a failed fourth conversion or like a failed field goal to just like play a little bit more conservatively and not go big and try to score huge?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, you do see that. I think it's also, like you said, tendencies of a head coach or an offensive coordinator. Just as a completely not in the NFL, but just on the complete opposite side, either when I'm playing Madden or when I was coaching my son's, flag football teams. Anytime we got a turnover or something, I was way more aggressive because I saw it as like, oh, it's a free possession. So if I don't get this, then okay, I wasn't supposed to have the ball anyways, especially on turnovers or things like that. So I think it could go either way, but yeah, I mean, it definitely could impact the passing game, and definitely when it comes to like what time in the game is it, right? We
Mm-hmm.
definitely see coaches that go conservative, or teams that it's getting close to the end of the half. They're not really looking to go score. They're kind of just playing keep away. But I mean, that still adds fantasy points, right, to the running backs. It's just not to the wide receivers and quarterbacks as much. So like we were talking about, it's both
Give
sides of
and
the coin,
take.
kind of. Yeah, and it's good and bad, right? Like it's always going to be one of those things that like I think in terms of yardage, unless you're talking about, like we were saying, one of these guys that are really aggressive, most of the time people are going for it 4th and 2, and they're at the 30 something, and they're just trying to get a touchdown instead of kick the short field goal. That's where a punt would be, so you're not losing a ton of yards. But I think it can be the tendency of some teams to just they're not the type of teams that want to go score. It's really interesting that there's head coaches like that. They don't want to score touchdowns on every play, or maybe they don't have the confidence in their quarterback or their offense to go not make a mistake and just give the ball right back. But you would hope that it would help them, put the foot down, like step on the gas and try to go score off a turnover on a 4th down stop.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Cool. Yeah, I don't know what kind of fantasy impact this is really going to bring to us. It's something more so that it feels like it deserves more attention. So just kind of like bringing it to the forefront and kind of having it talked about in some sort of way where we can kind of have a handle on it when it does come up and that information is available to us will be more easily to digest it, I feel like. And maybe you guys know where to find this kind of data and you can plug it down in the comments below so we can find it and digest it for you guys. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the other one where in a deeper league, or if you're playing with kickers or you're playing with defenses, there's some fun scoring things you could do, right? 4th down stops on Sleeper you could give points for that. So it might be something to bring up to the commissioner. Hey, like there's a lot more fourth downs. Maybe we add a little bit, although people get upset that defenses score too many points, and same with kickers. But if you do kickers right, with these 60-yard field goals and stuff, I think there's ways that if you have a kicker, you can also make it fun using these, or some different things. So it's more like tangential scoring stuff in terms of like actionable things. It's too wide of a range of outcomes to say like, okay, that means that you need to go get X player, right? Like that kind of wasn't what this episode was about. Is just more things that are happening in the NFL that you should be aware about, so that when some actionable advice comes up on like, well, hey, you know what? The wide receiver 2 for McVay actually is really good because he uses them to beat these cover 2 or deep shells, or the tight end for this team. Then you'll know exactly what is being talked about and won't be so lost with these NFL trends, because some things will come of it, like especially the things about the defensive coverage and some of these fourth down teams that go for it. Like there will be actionable pieces of like more detailed, like, hey, you want to grab this guy for this team because of X. You'll just know what X is referring to now because we kind of talked about it here.
Boom. Nailed it. Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. We're going to start talking rookies after this. So next week we'll start looking at the rookie class as a whole, and kind of try to identify the strengths of the rookie class. And then after that, we'll dive into each position individually and go over the prospects. I already started some of that last night, and I can already tell you I'm a big fan of Mekhi Lemon. So yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, man, let's jump into the outro here. Thanks, guys. As always, we appreciate you guys. Join Fast Draft. Use code FUTURE. If you guys want to do a roster review, leave a comment below. Like, subscribe the video. We're doing a free one for y'all. If not, you can send us out to futurefirstpod@gmail.com. If you want more info, we'll get you plugged in.
Yep. Thanks to McGrumble and Fox for helping us out. You can catch us always on Future First Pod on YouTube and wherever else you get podcasts. Thanks to Player Profiler Network for hosting us, and we're out, guys.
Another one in the books. I hope you guys are ready for a great season 2026. It's the year Future First.